Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this session today. We're really excited to have Laura Fuentes and Lee Sosin here from Green Roads. They'll be talking about building a CBD brand, the trials and tribulations associated with it. And before we get started, I'll just give a little brief overview of each of our speakers. So Laura Baldwin Fuentes is not only the CEO and co-founder of Green Roads, one of the largest and most respected manufacturers of CBD products in the country, but she is also the creator of its proprietary formulation and the visionary behind many of its products. Laura's personal and professional commitment to help people improve their health through safe, natural remedies has driven Green Roads to lead the industry in product quality and consumer transparency. Under her leadership, the company was one of the first to require independent lab testing on every product batch and one of the first to make every lab report available to consumers. Lee Sosin is Chief Marketing Officer of Green Roads, one of the largest and most respected CBD companies in the industry. In that capacity, he oversees all marketing functions and all aspects of the brand's identity, digital and social presence, e-commerce experience, packaging, in-store presence, consumer growth, and loyalty, and more. An expert in digital media and marketing, brand strategy, and multi-platform content creation, Lee previously served as SVP of Hearst Magazine's digital media. There he oversaw all digital marketing solutions and branded content functions for Hearst's 20 magazine brands, from Cosmopolitan to Country Living, across all of their advertising categories. Prior to joining Hearst, Lee led Yahoo's Strategic Solutions Group for the US and Canada and ran Time Inc. Studios, where in addition to digital content, he developed and produced television for TNT, Spike, Cartoon Network, TV One, and Lifetime Movie Network. A true left brain, right brain thinker, Lee has an MBA from Columbia University and an MFA in motion picture producing from USC. And with that, I will turn it over to our presenters today.
Thank you, Lauren. I really appreciate that. I'm Laura Fuentes. I'm the CEO and chairman of the board of Green Roads, and thank you for having us. I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Marketing Officer, Lee, to go ahead and start this off.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Lauren. It's a pleasure to be here. We thought we would basically structure this presentation in three pieces. We're going to talk a little bit about Green Roads, just to get those of you who are not familiar with our brand up to speed about who we are and what we do. Laura's going to talk a lot about how we got here, the trials and tribulations of starting from scratch and building a business in an industry that was developing right alongside Green Roads. And then we're going to talk a little bit about where Green Roads is today and the challenges that we face as a brand in a very crowded marketplace. And how does a brand stand out? Even if you're one of the oldest and largest, you still have to fight for shelf space and fight for the hearts and minds of consumers. So we're going to talk about those three things, and it's a pleasure to be here. So just to jump off a few things about Green Roads for those of you who have never heard of us. We are one of the oldest and most trusted brands in the industry. We regularly rank at the top of the industry in terms of market share, loyalty, customer base, that sort of thing. Green Roads is currently sold in more than 7,000 locations across the country, and we do about 9,000 monthly e-commerce orders. So we have a very loyal and robust direct-to-consumer presence. The company is known as a very high quality company, and a company that produces very high quality products. And although I'm sure every company says that, we have lots of market research that backs that up. So Brightfield Research Group, which is an independent research group that covers the cannabis and CBD industries, does surveys every quarter of CBD users. We always score, very strongly in those, and including this next stat, 94% of Green Roads customers stated they're likely to purchase our products again. And as you'll see as we get into sort of how brands compete today, that loyalty is really, really important. One of the things, as you heard from Lauren, in the introduction of Laura Fuentes, that she's a pharmacist. And one of the hallmarks of our brand has been since the beginning that we're pharmacist formulated. Laura, as she will tell you, has a very robust career as a compounding pharmacist. She makes all of our formulas. Our formulas are unique in the industry. That's actually very rare. Most people who aren't familiar with this industry don't realize that very few brands actually have their own formulas. Very few brands actually make their own products. It's more common that brands just buy finished goods from an industrial manufacturer and put their own label and packaging around it and then sell it as their own. We're unique. Part of a very small group of CBD brands that actually makes their own products with their own unique custom formulations. And we now have 3 pharmacists on staff, Laura and 2 others, who oversee all of our product development and all of our manufacturing, which is something that really helps us stand out in the marketplace. Again, talking about the loyalty and the quality, we just right before the holidays passed the 30,000 mark for 5-star reviews. 30,000 5-star reviews. It's something that we are incredibly proud of. And the other thing that we're really proud of, sort of connecting to that idea of making our own products, is that we just were approved by the FDA as an OTC manufacturer. OTC stands for over the counter, and that is sort of the level of products that is below prescription strength, but above what you would call just sort of a dietary supplement strength. So it's highly regulated, and because we have our own manufacturing facilities where we produce all of our topicals and oils, we were able to work very hard to get that certification, which is going to allow us to really innovate from a product standpoint. So that's a little bit about Green Roads. Laura, is there anything that I missed before we jump into the history?
No, I think you covered it all.
All right. Let's keep going then. So this is a selection. We actually have more than 60 products. This is a selection of our products for those of you who have never seen them before. We're going to talk a little bit about our product selection as we get into the brand and what we've done to make this brand stand out. But we do make everything from oils to gummies, capsules. We have chocolate. We even have bath bombs and essential oil roll-ons. Everything we do has a therapeutic benefit, whether that's designed to help you support your muscles and joints, to help you relieve your stress, even something as simple as an essential oil roll-on or a bath bomb is part of a wellness experience that we've designed for our customers. And so that's just a selection of the products. But let's move to section 2 of this talk, and probably the reason why most of you are here, which is to hear about how you start a CBD company, what Laura's experience was starting a CBD company, and all the bumps along the way that have not given her any gray hairs. We don't allow gray hairs here, but certainly have made for nice chapters in a future book as she recounts her story of starting a company in an industry that really didn't exist at the time. So let's jump right in. From a small kitchen table to thousands of loyal customers. And you'll see throughout this presentation, we actually have developed as part of the brand of Green Roads 6 values that really bring the company to life. One of which is that we still maintain a kitchen table spirit. And these illustrations that you'll see from time to time are sort of as we've brought to life those values. But they're unique to Green Roads. They're custom that we had made to help sort of archive the journey of Green Roads from those humble beginnings to where we are today. And with that, Laura, I will love to ask you a few questions about how we got this whole shebang going. Why don't you give a little bit, just to start off, let's go even before you became a pharmacist. Why don't you tell a little bit about your background and get us started?
Thanks, Lee. Good segue. So I started my journey in this beautiful process way back right out of high school. I graduated high school pregnant with my son. My husband today, we've been married 31 years, so it's been a long journey with him as well. So I didn't have a job. I really had no intention of going to college. That never crossed my mind. I always had really good grades in school because my father demanded it, but somehow the translation of having good grades in school and taking it to the next step just never came across through the household. One of my really good friends in high school's mother knew I had just had my son and said she needed a secretary, and she knew I needed a job. So I went in and I started working as her secretary, and horrible typer is an understatement for me to be a secretary, but I figured it out. I made best friends with the Xerox machine and figured out how to really fudge my way through being a secretary because I was just a horrible typist. And then one day she comes over to me and she's like, hey, why aren't you going to college? You have the same grades as my daughter and she has a scholarship to Miami-Dade, and why aren't you going? And I was like, well, I don't really know. I never thought about it. It's never been mentioned. And I just figured, it was kind of too late for me. So she's like, call Miami-Dade right now and find out what's going on. So miraculously and incredible, that same day was the deadline to register. So she's like, go to Miami-Dade right now, register and start taking classes. So started taking night classes, had really no idea what I wanted to study, none whatsoever. I just knew I liked math and science. So those were the classes that I really gravitated towards. And then in the office building that I worked was in a hospital. And one of the ladies in the office next to me kept saying, you should go to pharmacy school. You should go to pharmacy school. It's really good for females. There's a lot of flexibility, all those kinds of things. So back then you had to actually go to the guidance counselor's office, and they had rows of papers and what career choices you chose. And it tells you what the prerequisites were. So I looked at pharmacy and it was all math and science. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I just stumbled into pharmacy school, went to night school for the most part. Then I transitioned over to a job in the pharmacy, so I actually could see what I was getting ready for. Started working there and applied to only one university because, I had a small child. My husband had a job at the post office. We weren't really able to pick up and move for me to go to college anywhere. I applied to Southeastern University at the time, and everybody in the pharmacy that knew somebody that was applying there kept saying, you're never going to get in. You're never going to get in. It's impossible to get in there. Forget it. You're not getting in. And I was like, what? That's a thing? Like, you don't get into a college you apply for? What? I didn't think that was even remotely possible for me. So I applied. I went to my interview, and the two people that were interviewing me were actually arguing back and forth as to whether or not they thought I could make it through the program because I had a small child. So Dr. Athani was a female and Dr. Gazy was a male, and they were back and forth. Dr. Gazy kept saying, you're never going to make it. She's not going to make it. And Dr. Athani is like, what do you mean? Just because she's a woman and she has a child, she's not going to make it. Ridiculous. So I left there totally confused, figured for sure I wasn't getting in because true, I had a child and they thought that was going to be a problem. But I got my letter. I wasn't waitlisted. I got right in and started my pharmacy journey from there, and graduated from there, started working at a big chain for 17 years. I worked there. Really was unsatisfied with the way things are in a big chain. You don't get to experience your customers or really relate to them in any kind of a way. And it's really that part of pharmacy that I miss the most. It changed over those 17 years. And I transitioned over to a small independent pharmacy and got a lot more pharmacy compounding experience there because they were really known for that. And then from there,
explain what compounding is, because I think that's important in the journey.
Yeah. So compounding is when you take a medication that comes in a prescription form already. So it's already in its own natural form. Like, let's say it comes in a tablet, but you need to give that medication to somebody who can't swallow tablets, maybe an infant. Maybe it only comes in 500 milligrams and this patient needs only 5 milligrams. So you have to break that down and put it into another smaller form, like maybe a capsule, or maybe you make it into a liquid. Maybe you make it into a topical, but it's some form of preparing medications that are not already on the market. So it's actually making the dosage forms, you changing the dosage forms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And what did you, and so you've now been working, we're going to fast forward. Actually, I'll see if I can, I'll stop sharing the screen, we go make it a little easier for people to see us. So now you've been working, first of all, it's an incredible story. And I think that anybody would say that you have a lot to be proud of in terms of just the dedication and the self-confidence and sort of figuring out what your dream, what you wanted to do, your goals were, and then going after that. And I know that's going to play a big part as we hit the next chapter of the Green Roads journey, and that is CBD. So now you're working as a pharmacist, and you work for large corporations, you work for independent pharmacy, you're learning how to, or you're not learning how to compound, but you're getting more experience compounding and developing. And how did CBD walk into your life?
CBD actually did walk into my life. So my partner in all of this in the beginning is RB, and he came into the pharmacy. It's an independent pharmacy, so it's a little easier to have that relationship, like I said before, with your pharmacist. So he came in there, and I have known him for years. He was a friend of my brother's, and unfortunately he had a lot of accidents and surgery, so he had gone down that opioid path and was in a pretty dark place. Came into the pharmacy and asked me, hey, can you fill my prescriptions? And as a friend, I thought, well, I can fill his prescription so I can keep an eye on him and make sure that he's not taking it to the next level. Because that, unfortunately, during those days, that happened, and physicians were really not careful in making sure that their patients didn't keep going down that wrong path. So he came in, and I felt a level of comfort that I would be able to help him maintain where he was and not get worse. And one day he came in and he saw me compounding, because we had a big window where you could see us working in the back. And he asked me what I was doing. I explained to him why I was wearing the getup, the gown and the head and all that stuff. The hairnet. I was always wearing a head. But so he says, I explained to him what compounding was, and then he left, and he called me a few days later, and he's like, what do you know about CBD? He's like, I got this idea. He had a medical marijuana grow in Colorado, and he was ready to get out of the grow space, but he realized there that there was something about this CBD that more and more people were coming into the dispensary asking for high strain CBD products. He didn't know why, and he couldn't figure out why. But when, the light bulb went off in his head, hey, she's compounding, she's in pharmacy, there's a reason, maybe there's something here. So started doing a lot of research about CBD, and I honestly had no idea what CBD was. I had no experience with marijuana products at all. Graduating high school pregnant, being in college and pharmacy school, I never dabbled. I didn't have that normal college experience like most people do. So I had to do a lot of digging. Found out that there was a patent on CBD that the U.S. government had, and it had the patent was for a neuroprotector and an antioxidant, which are really good properties in medicine in general. So I just started playing around with this jar of oil. He used to go from place to place with this jar of oil that was supposed to be CBD. And back then I had no way of even knowing what was in that jar of oil. It was kind of like, well, let me just see what it is. I'm just going by on somebody's word of what it was, because really I had no way of knowing what it was. Started making products in any kind of a dosage form that I was familiar with making in the pharmacy. That would be oral liquids, tablets, capsules, suppositories, anything, and giving them to friends and family and getting good results for all different types of illnesses and issues that they were having. Then I started thinking outside the box. Well, what about other types of things? Like, you can take a candle and you can make a soy candle, and then you can use it as a massaging thing. So I actually made soy candles with CBD back then, that you melt the candle and you can use the wax for massaging. I decided that, I've always wanted to veer off of Western medicine, and then I started putting it into teas and making teas with it, because, like the Eastern medicine, everything is about a tea. Got really far along that path, made a bunch of products, and then RB and I decided that it was time to go visit a company in California and take them the products that I had made and see if we could convince them to let us make their products. They actually sold the raw ingredients of CBD. And I brought them all of the products that I had made, showed them to them. They really liked them, but they were like, nah, we're not into this. We're just really worried about our stock exchange, penny stock. They didn't really care about furthering the advancement of this industry. But then we found out that they really did like my products, so they tried to reverse engineer them. I wish I knew then what an NDA was, but I did not. Anyway, they were very unsuccessful in that, and we, kept moving from there to making products.
Wow. So what was the product that you made that you felt was like your first early success, where you said, oh, wow, this is a product I can actually go and market and sell?
It actually happened to be a cream, because a lot of people have sore muscles and joints and achy things. And that's something that you can have a lot of people try with not a lot of risk, because you're not ingesting it. So it's topical, it's pretty benign. You can try it amongst a lot of people and not have too much of an issue. And that was when I really noted, I really knew that we were onto something. But how did we get people to want to try it in the first place? That was the problem, because nobody believed that it was not marijuana, and there's all that stigma around it, and everybody was so afraid of it. I mean, this is back in 2013, 2014. So people did not understand, and it was really hard to explain what was going on.
So it's 2013. Most people have never heard of CBD. It has yet to sort of catch fire in in terms of popular knowledge. You're starting to make products in South Florida. And at what point did you figure out that this was, because at some point you had to leave your career and leave your career behind. Did that happen immediately, or was there a moment where you said, okay, now this is real?
Well, it took a while. So we didn't actually sell our first product until the end of 2014. It took a lot of convincing people. So Arby is a salesman. I am not a salesman. I worked full-time in the pharmacy, about 50 hours to 56 hours a week in the pharmacy. And then when I would go home on the nights and weekends, I would actually make the products and continue the research and the education and the R&D and everything. And we had a little pharmacy that was inside a physician's office that we were able to use for about a month. But that relationship didn't really work out, so we had to find something else that would work out. So what I did was I turned one of my bedrooms at my house into a pseudo clean room, which is sort of how you would do it in the pharmacy, as the best as I could to make these products. And Arby started going from store to store. The only people that we could get interested in these products were lifestyle brand stores, so smoke shops and head shops. And they aren't really topical oriented business. So what they were all interested in was vape products. So I was like, well, I'm going to work on some of these other formulations that I have and try to figure out how to coordinate them into a vape product. So I made something that was something you could vape as well as ingest orally. So you could do it either way. My preference is to ingest it orally, but those young kids really were into vaping back then. So we started selling a lot of those products. What we noticed was that the kids were taking those products home to their parents and grandparents, and they were taking the products. They were getting relief. Grandma's arthritis was feeling better. Next thing we noticed, grandma was going into this lifestyle stores to purchase these. I mean, you don't usually see grandma in a head shop, but grandma was going in there to get these kinds of products. And we started selling more and more. And it was really hectic for me. I was working, till 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning trying to package shipping. And I didn't have a lot of experience with Microsoft Word or things like that. And I didn't have time to figure it out. So I had like a template, and I used to just go and type in the invoice of these people and then go to the next one and erase that and fill in the blanks again and erase it and then print it and put everything in the shipping boxes and then take it to the post office. And so I was making the products, billing, packaging, shipping, doing all of that on my off time, which wasn't a lot of off time. Right. And then finally my husband was like, this has got to stop. Like you cannot do this any longer. So he actually had a heated discussion with Arby about it. He's like, she's killing herself. She can't do this anymore. You got to figure this out. So it was at that point in time where we were making a little bit of money, not a lot of money. And I said, okay, I'm going to leave the pharmacy. I just can't do this any longer. I just couldn't. So I left the pharmacy to make probably a quarter of what I was making in the pharmacy. So we just lived on credit cards for a long time to get through that. But you do what you have to do. And my boss at the time was like, "What are you doing? You're leaving to do what? To go where?" He's like, "No, you're crazy. Don't do this." But I was like, "No, I'm onto something here. We're really helping people in a different way. So I'm going to do it." And I did it. And I've never, ever looked back. I've never regretted the decision.
It's amazing that the story of Green Roads really is the story of the industry, right? You started off, nobody would carry the products.
Nobody would.
And now we've got 7,000 stores carrying the products, and it's everything from doctors' offices down to supermarkets. And it's just amazing. But, I know that one of and I can go back to the slides. I know that one of the things that has been consistent, and I think it really does come from your training as a pharmacist, is the focus on the product, right?
Yes.
You were making your own formulations. And because you had to, right? Nobody else there was no ability to go use somebody else's form. You had to make it yourself. And these were, this was not something that you were chasing a fad for. But I think for a lot of people, especially at the time, this was a fad, right? This was something that was just, hey, let's see if we can get in this industry and make a quick buck. And I think that still goes on today. But you were there trying to do something that I think not a lot of companies at the time were trying to do, which is say, this is wellness. And how did you go about, now let's talk a little bit about, what happened along the way, because I think that there were some definite, like you said, there were people who said, "Oh, you're just selling marijuana. You're just, we don't want to carry your products," or what were some of those challenges along the way that you encountered as you were trying to convince people that this is wellness and this is a legitimate business?
Wow. So many bumps along the road. I think the biggest one was a lack of understanding. Nobody understood what CBD was, and that how we were deriving it from hemp, and hemp was legal. The 2014 Farm Bill made hemp legal. Nobody could understand that. It was we went to many legal firms trying to get opinion letters. We got a couple of them. Now when I go back and I read them, they were really not great opinion letters, but at the time they helped us. They really helped us to be able to forge forward. People just don't understand it, and there's not a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? There wasn't a lot of trust in the industry. So for me, it was, I'm a pharmacist and I need people to trust me. I am, at one point, I know pharmacy was the most trusted profession in the country over the clergy. So it means a lot to me that I'm a pharmacist and I take people's lives into my hands. I don't want, bad product out there. So just trying to find anybody in a real business setting to help us move forward. I'm a pharmacist. I'm not an MBA. I don't have business experience. And when I left the pharmacy, I was working, full-time at Green Roads, but manufacturing and packaging and shipping and doing all of those jobs. I was still wearing a lot of those hats when I left the pharmacy. And it was hard to try to figure out how to handle the business part of it. So, I didn't have really good accounting practices. I just, kept everything in a ledger. I didn't really know how to use QuickBooks. We actually, at that point, were able to start bringing on sales team. We brought on Danny Perdek, and he brought in a bunch of sales team, and we were able to get a pseudo secretary that she came in and she had some experience with QuickBooks, and she started filling in the gaps there. But it's just, I don't know, it was really difficult.
What about, no business can exist in a vacuum, right? You need a bank. You need to rent space. You need to have people ship your products. You need insurance. How is that in a world where people thought you were basically selling drugs?
Yeah, so we tried to get insurance, and we were able to get insurance under the premise that we were a vape commodity. And we really weren't a vape commodity, but that was what the insurance company said that they were okay insuring us for. So we actually, our first insurance policy was, for a substantial amount on product liability. And then banking, I learned quick. The first time I went into the bank to open up a business account, I told them exactly what we were doing, and they were like, no, that's not going to happen. So then I said, oh, well, I need to approach this in a little bit of a different way. So I went into the bank and approached it as a nutraceutical company, because in my mind, that's what we are. We're a nutraceutical company. We are a health and wellness company. We make dietary type supplements. We make nutraceuticals. So they were okay with that. They went ahead with that, and we were able to get banking. And then, there was a lot of bad people in the industry, a lot of people trying to cross over from the marijuana world into the CBD world, back and forth. So, I had to be really careful who we did business with and make sure that they didn't have a strong marijuana background, because that would affect our banking. We needed a merchant, so we need someone that would process our credit cards. So we had signed up with one company at first, and they're okay. They were great. We started, processing small amounts a day, 500, 1,000. And then once we started processing up to $10,000 a day, they were like, time out. What are you doing? So then they would start doing a deep dive investigation. And it was like, well, we had to really, prove to them that our business was legal before they would let us keep going. Sometimes they didn't give us that opportunity to prove that it was a legal business and we could keep going. And sometimes they just shut us down. So we had to scramble and find something new. It was always a different problem or a different challenge that kept coming up along the way.
It's amazing that, that as you became more successful, people became more suspicious, and
Right.
it's really amazing. And I know that 2018, with the passing of the 2018 Farm Bill, was a huge event in the industry, and that now we're in a much different place. Right now, now we're in an incredible place where the company is thriving, where CBD is everywhere. So why don't you give everybody just sort of like a sort of a summary of where we are today, because I want to make sure we have enough time to get to the next section.
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit too, though. So in the summer of 2019, even after the Farm Bill passed in 2018, it's blatantly clear. CBD is legal, hemp is legal. It is supposed to be traded or sold as a commodity. It is legal. But in the summer of 2019, there were a lot of bad actors in the industry, and one credit card processing company was dealing with a lot of them, and they were having some problems. So they shut everybody's credit card processing down. So for about a month and a half, we had zero way to process an order. But I didn't, I realized that our products are like medicinal products to people, and they can't be without them. So even though we couldn't process credit cards, we still ship product out. We ship product out to about 50,000 people without getting payment. And I never expected to get that payment back. But once we got our credit card processing back up and running, we sent people emails, hey, we had a problem processing your credit card. Would you mind giving us, helping us out and paying now? And I was surprised at the amount of people that actually did. They did the right thing and they processed the credit card. Some people were like, no, I'm not giving you the money. But a lot of people really did the stand-up thing and sent us their, not sent us our credit card information, but they let us process their cards at a later time. So that was surprisingly a really pleasant surprise to me.
It's amazing. It's amazing that the company would make that decision to say, even if we're not sure we'll ever collect the bill, let's keep sending product out to our customers because we know they need it. I don't know many businesses that would do that.
Yeah, I couldn't with a good conscience sleep at night knowing that people needed these products, weren't getting them. So I mean, I think that goes back to me being a pharmacist, and I really have to care about the end user. It's just the amount of testimonials and things that we get in of how this is helping people. It's just not right to not serve them in that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's and I think that this slide sums it up. I mean, as we said in the beginning, 30,000 5-star reviews. We get a lot of them that are similar to that first one there, right? I've tried 10 different brands, but I keep coming back to Green Roads. Why? Because it works, because the products are better, because they're doing what I need them to do. And it's really just remarkable in that regard. So maybe I'll give you a break and I'll sort of summarize where we are today, and then we'll move into the next section, which is, you know, how do you compete? How do you compete in a world where this is what a CBD display might look like in a supermarket, and that's obviously an actual one. So how do you go from this, which is, you know, amazing products, tons of 5-star reviews. We've got 100 employees. We've invested heavily in systems and that allow us to ship efficiently and really to be able to scale the business. The company, by all accounts, is doing really, really well. And yet, you know, the industry as a whole still has this problem. And that is that nobody can go in to, you know, when people go into a supermarket or a drugstore and they see this, they're completely overwhelmed with product. And, you know, most people would look at that and say, I don't know how to make a decision. I don't know what these things do. I don't know how to pick one brand over another. So for me, and as we sort of move into this section, and I only have a few minutes left, I think is the challenge of it. So after all the challenges of actually just getting getting your products, being able to get banking, being able to create a product, being able to have what the world considers a legitimate business, now there was this mad rush. And I think, you know, you said about now all of a sudden everybody's got a CBD brand, every celebrity's got a CBD brand, because it's so easy, as we said in the beginning, to just buy products from an industrial manufacturer, put your own box and label around it, and then sell it, right? And nobody knows the difference. So I wanted to talk, if unless there's anything else you wanted to wrap up, but if not, I'll start talking a little bit about the brand and how we compete today. So the biggest challenge, obviously, with any brand, and how do you get started as a brand, is to know who you are. And I think that Green Roads, you know, really benefited from the idea, from the foundation that Laura gave it, right? We were pharmacist formulated. We had something different about our products. We knew we were a wellness company. And I think that as we said in the beginning, so many other brands, especially after 2018 and when CBD started exploding, so many brands were just trying to catch a fad. And they didn't really, I think, in many cases, even know why they were making CBD products. They didn't have that sort of that background and that dedication to it. They were just trying to catch a fad. We had the benefit of having that foundation as a pharmacist formulated brand, as a wellness brand. And I think that really helped a lot. But I want to talk about basically two different things that we did when I joined the company back at the beginning of 2019, end of 2018, to really evolve where we were and prepare for the reality that we're in right now. The first one was this knowledge, right? Nobody buys a product that they don't understand. And if you go back, it's very hard to make heads or tails of a lot of these products. And when I remember, you know, when I joined the company, I said to you, you know, for a company that's supposed to relieve anxiety, I felt like Green Roads was causing me anxiety, because I would go on the website, I had no idea what to buy. And we had 7 different strengths of oil, and each one had a number on it, a number of milligrams. And I didn't know, as a novice, do I take 150 milligrams, 250, 550, 1,000, 1,500, 3,500? And then all of a sudden I realized, well, wait a second, that's the total amount of milligrams in the bottle. That's not every serving. I was so confused. And so I think one of the first things we sort of realized is that we need to combat customer confusion. And we did this, right? We got rid of all of our different strengths, and we got it down to 3, where we said, look, it's mild, moderate, and mighty. Let's bring people to something where they can look at it and they know exactly, okay, I'm a beginner. I'm going to start with mild. I'm going to start with moderate. I know what I need. I'm going to move to the mighty strength. But it's very easy. It's an easy mental signpost. We made the box much easier to read. We created, we moved everybody to this measuring system. So when you take the oil, you can actually have a little bit more control, and you say, I want to take a little bit more, a little bit less. We put education on the side of what the difference is between a full spectrum product and a broad spectrum product. We wanted to make sure that people could understand what they were getting. It's so important, especially when you're talking about, any new industry. Even if you're talking about Uber, when the first time you hear about Uber, you're like, well, wait a second, how does it work? What is that? It takes a little while for people to really understand. And for CBD, it's even more complicated. So that was the first thing. The second thing we realized, I think, and this comes a lot from your training, is that the more you educate a consumer, when consumers are educated, good brands win. So we started helping people understand, what is CBD? What can it do for you? How do you pick a good product? What is the difference? And that level of education brings transparency and brings trust. And I think that was a huge thing that we did. And then the same thing along sort of this idea of understanding and helping the consumer sort of get into this. How do you get someone to try something for the first time? I think functional products were sort of the next phase. We obviously just launched a massive line of sleep products. And to me, this is where the industry is going, which is making it very easy for someone to understand, oh, I take this for this effect. And I know you worked really hard at developing these different formulations that are good for sleep. And, we've seen a lot of success, but I think the success comes from two things. Number one, nobody can sleep today because it's, 2021 and everybody's stressed out, but also because it's a clear product that everybody understands. When you look at that product and you see the name, oh, Sweet Sleep, Sleepy Z's, I understand what that's going to do for me. And now we get out of this sort of the confusion of, well, I don't know what CBD is for. And I think that's a huge step forward for the industry as we start moving to more functional products and clearer products. I'll pause for a second if there's anything you want to jump in on. Otherwise, I think we'll move to the last bit. Lauren, how are we doing on time?
We are right about where we should be.
Okay. So the last thing that I think that in terms of competing today, we talked a little bit about how important it is for people to have clear understanding of the products and what they do and how to buy them and what a strength is and how to just sort of demystify the category, which I think is everybody's responsibility in this category. The next thing that we did was take those sort of that idea of creating functional products, and we help people with signposts like on our website about what to use this for. Really, really important. So now people can shop by solution. We give them shortcuts. We don't list every product. Obviously, there's a lot there, but we want to give you an explanation of how this can help with your stress and what products can help, how this can help with your sleep, how this can help you relax, and what products can help you with that. So I think it's all about making it simplified for the customer. The last thing is that we're a wellness company and wellness is human, right? You can go and buy a cell phone from a robot, but nobody wants to buy a wellness product from a company that is faceless, that doesn't have empathy, that doesn't understand the challenges of their lives. So every communication point that we have is about humanizing our brand, right? And you can see examples of it here, whether it's something that we did to launch our sleep capsules. Even when the kids tell you they're moving back in, we can help you snooze soundly. For Father's Day, these are real people. And these are sort of images that everybody can relate to. And then one of our obviously best-selling products is our Relax Bears. And we now take that Relax Bear and we put it in all kinds of environments to help people understand how this sort of intersects with their everyday lives. This idea of becoming a human brand it's not just talk. We've incorporated it into everything we do. So every box has a message. If you look at the left, from Laura, right? Here's why we made this product, right? We know what it's like to have trouble sleeping. And then inside the box where it shows up at your house, there's another message from Laura that says, hey, this matters to us, right? You're buying a product from a company that is staffed by human beings who are here to help you. And it's led by a pharmacist who's been doing this for her entire career. So we really took that idea of, we want to be a human brand. We don't just sell products, we put our staff favorites up. I'm there, Victoria, there's a lot of our staff have said, this is my favorite product and here's why. I take this product and it puts a human face on it. And then we basically created a, sort of a roadmap for people where we can hold their hand a little bit as they enter the category. And again, I think it's really, really important for anybody in the wellness space to have a very, very human brand and not just try and be a luxury brand or a fad. That's not what this category is about. And that's it. That was our, that's it. That's the trials and tribulations of starting a brand from scratch around a kitchen table and keeping that kitchen table spirit going all the way to today.
And that's definitely the elevator pitch version. There's much more that went into this, but we need hours to go into all that.
Of course. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been wonderful learning about your career journey, Laura, and about, what you've gone through in building this brand, and Lee as well, your sort of recommendations for others that are starting out or in the industry, and a true focus on wellness and how you carry that across through your branding and your marketing and just your overall company values. It's great to hear about, and I think many people will really come away with this with some great insights. So thank you so much again. And in a little while, we will open up to some questions. So thank you.